Okay. Hi, who entered?
Jeannie?
I just heard. Was that you? Was there somebody else that just entered also?
Yes.
Oh, hi. I know you. Okay, so like I had said before, I just asked that everybody mute their phones. I want to introduce myself real quick and tell you what I think the point of this, what I'd like to accomplish. My name is Sirena La Point. My abilities are I'm a medium, a clairvoyant, and an empath. So what that means in very layman's terms is I can hear spirit, I can see them, and I can feel them. I also have the ability to focus in on physical energy and pick up on things, energy off of people, places, and things. So that's my basic overall, gambit or whatever you want to call it. What I'd like to do here today is not necessarily say, hey, this is a right or wrong answer. I don't believe in right and wrong answers, not when it comes to people's spiritual journeys. I believe this is a very individualized experience, this world and your spiritual journey in general. Even the afterlife seems like a very individualized experience for each spirit that you talk to. So because of this, I just want to basically either give you, statistically speaking, overall, what spirit has told me through thousands of sessions, or just a starting point to help you guys have a basis to explore a subject further. So I'm hoping that this will at least pique your guys' interest, get your mind going, and either say, hey, I agree with that, or I don't agree with that, but have enough interest to look into it further and find your own truth. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Everybody, okay. I have one person on mute so somebody can answer. Okay. So what I want to do is I first want to start with a question from Carol. I don't know if it's Caroline or Carolyn. She wrote me and said, let's see. I love it when people are like, oh, I have a quick question, and it turns into a book. Let's see. Hold on. Wow. I didn't want to read this whole thing. I'm sorry. I thought I had it set up. Okay. She had a couple different questions. She said, hey again, I was wondering if you knew about auras. My friend had a bright aura sometime recently. It was light blue, but it was pretty cool. As I never seen an aura so vivid and glowing before. Do you know what they mean? Now, an easy response would have been me telling her that I don't see auras and to look it up, but, I can't ever take the easy route out. So my response to her was, my understanding of auras is it's basically our vibrational field around us, which resonates at different frequencies at different times, depending on our energy flow through our chakras. This energy creates a color depending on the vibration, just like you can measure heat density with an infrared camera. As far as the meaning of colors, I'm not sure if they are tied into the meaning behind the colors of your chakras or if they have their own color meanings. In chakras, blue represents the throat chakra and has a frequency of 606 to 670. I guess to truly know if auras correlate with chakra colors, we would have to test the frequency of her aura. On a spiritual level, blue, green, purple, and gold are all associated with high spiritual levels. However, the spiritual meaning of the color would be subjective to the feeling the reader associates with the color, with that color and seeing it around the person. To necessarily say it is written in stone of seeing this color represents this about this person, I'm not too sure. So then I went on and asked her some basic questions like what sense she had when she saw the color, because we're going to see things in ways to get us to understand it. My basis of logic is not the same as everybody else's. I go off on my own past experiences, my memories. Everybody has their own independent past and memories. So when we are receiving signs, when we're receiving information about other people or from spirit, they have to work with our own personal database. So to sit here and say it's so cut and dry, and this means this, and this means that, it's very, very, very hard for me to agree with that. I would say that it's subjective to however the reader interprets it. It should come with a very hardcore sense, like it should make you feel something on a cellular level. And then if you're not 100% sure, if you do, I hate to say do a Google search, but if you do a Google search, especially on like the spiritual color meaning of something or what does auras mean, they're all going to be different in the websites, but something will speak to you, and that will help give you your answer. Hi, who just entered?
Hi, this is Kat.
Hi, Kat.
How are you doing?
Good. You're in Washington, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, next question. I had quite a few questions in the conference event page about spiritual connection. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? We'll tackle this one first. Now, I had said that I would not do general readings or actually talk to departed loved ones in this conference. Obviously, if I pick up on something when I'm talking to one of you guys, I will let you know. But when somebody just writes in a question, sometimes I feel things from, a particular spirit. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I need that actual connection to their voice to feel those vibrations, because all your encoded information is in your vibrational field, and that comes out in your voice. This particular question that this person had asked me was actually, she said, why did one of my best friends commit suicide a couple days ago? I feel guilty as to know why. I didn't see it coming. I'm just confused, sad, lost. I hope that she is okay. This is actually about a spirit. Instead of saying, this isn't meant to talk to departed loved ones or, general readings, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about suicide in the spiritual realm. I believe that there is a huge misconception when it comes to suicide. Like I said, this is my belief. And I'm going off of my experience from the thousands of spirits that I talk to. I can say that the majority of spirits that I have talked to that have committed suicide are actually more at peace than a lot of other spirits. And when I say more at peace, I mean that, they're not in limbo. They're not in hell. I don't know if there is a hell. They're very, very much at rest. And I believe that this is because they know why they killed themselves. They know that they were going to die. They were ready to die. They were ready to take that journey, and they were okay with it. I come across more spirits that are not at rest or at peace when they die very suddenly, and it was like wrong place, wrong time, walk down the street and getting hit by a stray bullet or something. They have no clue what happened to them. And these are the ones that seem to be stuck in limbo or stuck on this earth. Now, there's a flip side to that. I have had some spirits know why they pass and just choose not to cross over. These particular spirits, when they are associated with suicide, I have found, statistically speaking, that the ones that choose to stay here is because they are scared to lose their family. They don't understand that they can have a connection with their family here on earth if they cross over. So in these situations, usually just by explaining to the spirit that they'll actually have a stronger connection and that they will be able to still be around us and still talk to us if they cross over, then they will make that journey. But I do not correlate being stuck in limbo to suicide at all. And this is why I wanted to talk about this a little bit, because there's a huge misconception about this. Just because somebody commits suicide does not mean that they get stuck here. We all have free choice to cross over. So it comes down to that choice. Some of us don't exactly know to cross over, so sometimes it takes somebody like me, like a medium, or one of your guys' family members to come down and tell you, like, hey, why don't you come with me? But it's still our free choice. And I'm going to stick with that instead of going into, like, other facets of it, like so-called evil energies, like sticking souls here or keeping them here or anything like that. I'm just going to talk about basic run-of-the-mill people that have lived here in the physical and, are of, human nature or human beings, we'll say. So when it comes to feeling guilty of not being able to see a suicide comment, I'm going to speak off of personal experience with this. I have tried to commit suicide, and let me tell you that if somebody is truly suicidal, usually you cannot tell. And I know when I tried to commit suicide, I literally had tunnel vision. I had one goal in mind, like I was done, and that was it. I wasn't sitting there all depressed and crying and telling everybody I love them. Those are usually cry for help. Those are, things that I try to reach out and get help, but it wasn't in that way. Like, I really had sought out help, and I just, I didn't really receive it. So I thought that was, like, my last option. But I didn't go and make this huge scene about it. Most people don't. Most people, they really feel that it is their very, very last option. They're very gung-ho about doing it, and they're not trying to have anybody prevent them or stop them from that. So they get what's called tunnel vision. And if you talk to people in the field of psychology that have dealt with suicide victims that have, obviously made it, who are truly suicidal, they talk about this tunnel vision a lot, because you really do just have one goal in mind, and everything else is just kind of blurred out. You don't really think about what other people are thinking about you. If you realize that you had a lot of people out there that loved you and there was ways out of your situation, well, then you wouldn't be suicidal. So it creates this tunnel vision, and a lot of people do not know, why it happens. They don't see it coming because they're seeing the person as they know the person. There's a lot of people that I've known, throughout my life that I couldn't understand why they were suicidal, just like I had family members come to me who were just devastated when they found out that I had tried to commit suicide. They could not understand it at all. It, really severely affected them in a really, really negative, bad way, because they just could not understand how someone like me, could have really tried to commit suicide. Now, for this particular person, Aubrey, to tell her exactly what's going on with her friend, I would have to talk to her, especially, since she is a spirit. I have not picked up on anything just by talking to her yet, through messaging or text. I've never really had the issue of talking to particular spirits, so, if she wants to further get those concrete answers from her friend to see what exactly was going on with her friend, which would be very individualized, she can always reach out and ask. So Courtney writes in and asks, how do I know if I am an empath or just overly emotional, or empath really a thing? I have to say yes, because I'm an empath, but there's a big difference here. Being empathic to the extreme that you could say, hey, I'm an empath. Look, everybody has empathy. Everybody, it's part of our human nature to care about animals and people, and we're taught by society to constantly give to the poor and less fortunate. But, or somebody's wounded or hurt, the majority of people will have empathy. It's built into us. When your empathy is to an extreme, where you are feeling every fluctuation off of somebody, their pain, their emotions. When you can feel pain and emotions that's been left over in a place, if anything emotionally traumatizing or extremely great, leaves a huge, great impact on an environment, it will leave this imprint. So something really super joyous happened and everybody's super, super happy. Their emotions get amped up. The same with, negative energy too. If they're yelling and screaming a lot in a place, it'll leave this negative imprint in a place or a positive imprint. So if you're empathic and you go into that environment, you go into that area, chances are you're going to feel that energy. You can also pick up on emotions and pain off of people that, friends, family. If you go into bars, you can feel everybody's different energy. You get usually, for me, my heart will start racing. If I sit next to somebody that's been drinking, I feel as if I had that many drinks. super cheap date. Like, don't really need to drink a lot at all. Like, I can just sit next to somebody and feel it. If I go into a nursing home, they give somebody their sleepy time meds, I will be sitting there nodding out, and I won't even have to know that they had meds. People can also feel animals' energy. There are some people that have this, like, huge connection with animals, and that's why we have, like, the dog whisperer and things like that. So it goes, like, across the board. It's not just in people. It's not just with spirits. It's not just with animals. It's not just with places. Also objects. Objects can have imprints on them. When you're empathic, it's more than just being, empathetic towards somebody. It's literally can destroy your life. You're usually in and out of the hospital listed as a hypochondriac. You have a lot of symptoms that people don't understand. You don't understand. The doctors, you can't explain them. So I was in and out of the hospital my entire life, and the doctor would say one or two things. Either, I don't know what's going on with you. Yes, you have these symptoms, but it doesn't match what it should. Or, two, you're dying. There was never anything in between, because I got to the point where I didn't like going to the doctors. I felt like a hypochondriac. I felt like people thought I was making this stuff up. I felt like they never had a solution to me. So I'd wait so long to go that finally when I would go, it would be something like super, super severe. Another thing that will happen to true empaths are a lot will get diagnosed with psychological issues, emotionally, like psychological issues. I'm not necessarily saying like schizophrenia. I'm talking about more like bipolar, ADHD, a lot of things like that. Not being able to concentrate is a big thing with empaths, because your mind's kind of all over the place because you cannot process everything that's going on. To say that everybody that's overly emotional is also an empath, I don't know. I mean, is it possible? Yes. Am I going to say every emotional person out there is an empath? No. I think there's like different degrees of either, you have empathy or you are full-blown empathic. You might just have a connection just to the feelings and environments, or just feelings off people, or just spirits. That I would still label you as empathic. I think there's a lot of different degrees. Who just entered the call? Hello?
This would be Barry.
Hi, Barry. How are you? You're in Toledo.
Not bad.
Okay. So we were just talking about empaths. So do you guys have any questions concerning being empathic?
Me particularly?
No, like anybody on the line. We're just like completely quiet now. No?
Yes,
I have a question, I guess.
Go ahead.
So I was recently on an airplane, and it just felt like I could hear every single conversation going. I felt like I wanted to jump out of my skin.
Okay.
Would that be along those lines, or is it just something else? Because I had to almost kind of meditate to calm, because I felt like I could just hear every single thing that was going on.
Well, that could be a couple different things.
Okay.
I do believe that people that are connected to spirit or that have psychic abilities, we're empaths, because the way that spirit works, they work telepathically, and they work on a cellular level. And so we can really feel those fluctuations. And then when you have psychic abilities, we are actually built to work and communicate through body language. Like 97% of our language is body language. Media teaches us to focus on the 3%, verbal communication. But we have those, our body responds to our emotions and the effects that we have from these emotions. So when you're psychic, this is something that's going to speak to you because you feel it. You feel it on people. People will wear their emotions, in their eyes and on their feet. And I mean, you can just tell that, people are going through stuff regardless if they have a smile on their face or not. So what happens in small spaces, if you have any sort of psychic ability or stronger connection to your spiritual side, is you start feeling everybody all at once because it's all around you.
Right.
Now, what that does is kind of send you into sensory overload, and your body starts going through the process of trying to take one of those, like if you're hearing a whole bunch of different things, you're going to try to take one of those and focus on it to make sense of it and, process what you need to and then let it go, and so on and so on and so on. But when you're hyperly sensitive to things, it's just like an overflow of information. What it sounds like to me is I would say that you definitely have empathic traits, but to me it sounds like you are tapping in more on the telepathic wavelength and more on like, the psychic wavelength. You also have somebody that has passed around you, a male. It's like getting really, really hard to breathe.
Well, I mean, I feel like my uncle
this
is
person,
my
this person, sorry not to cut you off, this person, I have a lot of tightness in my chest. And it literally goes like through my chest to my back. So this could be two separate problems, as if they could have had like back problems and some sort of long, hard chest problems. Or sometimes, when we have problems in the front, it will put pressure on the back. Or it could have, something could have went through the front, out the back. I will say, for them to get through to me in this facet, they're pretty strong. Because I'm really trying to stay focused. No, it's okay. And for whatever reason, this is going to sound like complete lunacy, I'm sure. For whatever reason, he's eating oranges, and I really don't know why. I can't tell you anything about why he's eating oranges. He's just really emphasizing oranges. So. This is the thing.
Is it the whole orange, or just like with the peel?
I don't know.
Is it with the peel? Okay.
I really don't know. I'm just seeing him with an orange in his hand, and he's making like these motions of eating. So I don't know if it's getting peeled or not. I really don't. But this is the thing. The reason why I try very hard to focus on just answering questions and not letting spirit come through is because if I open up something like this for afterlife communication and talking to departed loved ones, which, I do plan on doing in the future, I would do a proper opening in the beginning to have people understand how spirit works instead of them just bombarding us like this. Have you ever done an afterlife session?
Yes, with you.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, then you know how it works. Never mind.
Yep.
Okay, never mind. Okay, never mind. Well, some people haven't, and spirit can work in so many different ways. That's By the way, he's with the grandmother also. All right, they got to stop. So what I think is going on with you, and this is what I would suggest, when you're going into crowded areas, I would do the same thing, or at least try what I do. And I have to do this kind of, I do a kind of tunnel vision. Now, let me tell you, putting blocks up don't always work. Overall, they'll work, but if something's really super important for you to know, you're not going to block out everything. It's like a filtering process. That's really what putting blocks up are. Putting a block up is to help you live your everyday life and get the messages that you need through when you need them. John, since I know you're on the line, when John calls me and he'll pick up on spirits around me. Well, you know what? I talk to spirit on just about a daily basis for people. So the majority of the time, I like to ignore them. I don't care who's around me. I don't want to talk to them. I'll talk to them when it's time for me to talk to them. Now, half the time, I can't even validate for him if these people are, after I realize I talked to the person, in a session, I'll definitely validate for him, but I try not to focus on them because I work so hard at putting my blocks up that I know if it's super important information, it's still going to get through to me. So I don't want you to think that putting a block up is going to, knock out, your psychic ability at all, okay?
Okay.
I can't even believe I'm using the word psychic. I hate the word psychic. I think it's just, the only generic term that I can think of that, everybody understands. So what I would do in these closed-off areas is I would put a block up. What I do, if I go to the grocery store, I focus on whatever my intent is to be there. I try to ignore everybody. I don't know how better to say it. Okay, right before this, I went to Walmart and I was getting almond milk. I literally just focused. I just have to get almond milk. That's all I'm here to do. And it just puts it out there. It kind of creates this tunnel vision. So you can do this with anything. Now, that's very, in short. For you to get on a plane, you could just easily kind of put it in your mind. It doesn't have to be something, super hard. You don't have to do some big, long mantra. You don't have to, put this big bubble around you or anything like that. You can really just have it in your mind exactly what your intent is. My only intent is to sit on this plane and get to wherever I'm going without sharing everybody's nonsense in their head.
Okay, so I guess more of the mindfulness. Is that what you're, just, that one thing?
Okay, wait, say that again.
Hello?
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 Hi, who entered the call?
This is Jolene Peltier.
Hi, Jolene. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Fargo, North Dakota.
Fargo. Welcome, Fargo. Okay. I just asked everybody to basically mute their phones, and we'll take questions one at a time. If there's anything that you want to ask after we're discussing something, feel free to chime in and ask or, interject or add your own experience.
Okay.
So when you're talking about, mindfulness, can you explain that a little bit? I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I think, just being very on that, very focused on that one thing that you are doing or, what your intent is, flying. I just want to get there without
right.
Just peace and enjoy the flight or whatnot, but just being focused on exactly what you're doing right then.
Right, and what that does is it really kind of it kind of does the work for you. Okay. There's a lot of different ways that you can put up blocks, that you can do grounding. But what that does is just basically switching your attention to exactly right now what you're doing, just you in the physical. Is it on a subconscious level just kind of creates a bubble around you.
Okay.
The more that you focus on the people talking around you, the more you're going to absorb their energy.
Mm-hmm.
Because your vibrations are in your voice. And in your vibrations, everything is encoded. So as soon as you start doing that, all that stuff is going to start flowing into you. So you have to make sure to, the best way to put up a block is to just focus right on the now in the physical.
Okay.
The more you focus on the stuff around you, the more you're going to absorb it. So sometimes it's hard, though. I get it. I get overwhelmed. I freak out on Facebook every once in a while. God, they won't leave me alone. Sometimes you have to step out of a situation. Sometimes you can't step out of a situation. So that's when you have to do the extra things, like the meditative tricks. I do a really, really quick breathing technique that Wayne Dyer introduced, and it's called 6 seconds to bliss. And literally all it is breathing real deep through your nose, holding it in your stomach for 4 seconds, and releasing it real slowly through your nose. It literally takes 6 seconds, and you'll feel kind of all that anxiety lift off you. So if you can't get out of, physically get out of the situation, you can do like a meditative trick. But what it sounds like to me is you need to kind of be more conscious of your physical now when you're going into these situations to put up that block to begin with.
Right, and it really did surprise me because, a couple of years ago, I actually quit a really, good-paying job because there were too many people. It was starting to, overwhelm me. And now that I think about it, I think this is the first time I've really flown since I've kind of started moving away from big groups of people. But it just really caught me off guard. I had not even, I guess it's something I should have thought about beforehand. I will definitely in the future. But, it just was very overwhelming. And I've flown all my life, so it just really surprised me.
Well, this is another thing, too, I want you to keep in mind that once you start on your spiritual journey, and this could be willingly or just kind of bombards you, once that happens, it's going to progress. And there's really nothing you can do to stop it. You can try to not have your energy expand and your vibrations raise. So what it's going to do is it's going to create physical symptoms. And then even as your energy is raising, you're still going to, a lot of people will get headaches, a lot of people will get drained because you're adjusting to this new energy. But, it doesn't matter how you enter that journey, you are going to expand. Mm-hmm. Things are going to happen differently. So don't be surprised that you keep running into these situations that something like that's never happen. And it's just to teach you how to understand that situation and control it a little better, which just helps the process.
Right. No, this is great. I appreciate your information.
I don't want, this is the thing. What I don't want people to, I don't want people to be afraid of their spiritual journey, and I don't want people to think it's difficult and you have to put all this work into it, because this is naturally within us. In 2012, we went through an awakening, regardless if we realized it or not. Our DNA, all of our so-called junk DNA got inactive. That's why we have this awakening going on. So it's happening in us regardless. You don't have to sit there and know how to meditate and be all quiet and sit there and go, try to get everything out of your head. It's happening in you anyways. So it's once you become cognitive of that, then things start becoming more and more clearer for you. And if you just take on every little thing that comes your way when it happens, like, oh, you know what, that's something different. How do I handle that? Or I didn't know that could happen, but it is, so I guess that's true too. They're only going to give you whatever you can handle, and you're only going to get what you need anyways when it comes to this. You're not going to get more than you need, or if you're not ready for it. So it's just taking everything in stride. But I don't want anybody to get overwhelmed when it comes to their spiritual journey, because it's not supposed to be about this. This is very natural, and it should stay very natural.
Right. Okay, thank you.
This is my own question. Did you turn around and, say, I don't care what you had for dinner last night? I know you didn't cook it bad.
It was I felt like I could hear, and I was 3/4 of the way back on a large plane, I almost felt like I could hear every single conversation all the way up to the front going on. I just wanted to stand up and say, be quiet.
Right.
Shut up. It was just oh my gosh.
I would have just walked around and been pervert. Don't be looking at her. Yes, your taxes, they are completely fucked. You're right. Yep, you're losing your house tomorrow. I would have just
and everybody runs off the plane, and then I have a private plane.
No, I say that, but I couldn't do that because I chicken out in public. I was like, oh my God, why do I know that you never had kids?
Yeah,
I don't care that you broke your arm 2 years ago. It gets a little overwhelming. But you know what I do in those situations that I can't turn it off? If I try really hard for it not to, like, annoy me, and then I just, like, sit there and basically, like, psychically spy and listen to all the weird little stories. So you can at least have fun with it. All right, let's see. Next question. Let's see. We have... Okay, so Rebecca says, Sirena, I am told I have a spirit or entity attached to me because everywhere I have lived, we have unexplained events in my home. But the weird thing is they didn't start until I married my husband. I've had some close relatives pass away. Oh, my screen just went black. Close relatives pass away since as well. So how do I know what it is, and how do I get rid of it and make it stop? It scares my children but it never bothers my husband. Okay. Well, first of all, I actually responded to her in here, but I did want to kind of touch base a little bit on this because a lot of people will write in questions like this for me. And usually it starts a little different. Usually it just goes into, I have a demon in my house and it's messing with my kids. The worst thing that you can ever do if you have paranormal activity in your house that you can't explain is to just jump to the conclusion that it is evil or something bad or something like that. What you want to do is, if you are experiencing spiritual activity, you want to do what you would do in any other situation. Call a professional. If you don't know about it, don't take care of it. To me, it's common sense. You know, if you want your car fixed, you're going to take it to a mechanic. If you want it fixed well, if you want, like, everybody to put their 2 cents in, then you take it to your brother and your dad, and then they'll sit there and argue and tell you what they think is wrong with it. But, well, unless they're really good mechanics. Mine, not so much. But, you know, to sit there and dwell on it and ask everybody and their brother what this could be is like the worst thing that you can do. You need to call somebody that can actually talk to spirit or can scan your environment from afar and just say, hey, this is what's going on, or somebody that can come in and do a walkthrough. And that way you know, because spirits come to us for different reasons. Some spirits that, you know, die in a place, do they stay there sometimes? Yes. That's usually, I mean, just because somebody died there doesn't mean they're going to stay there. Like, put it this way, if you, like, died, you know, on the side of the road somewhere, like, do you plan on staying there for eternity? Probably not. You're probably going to go back to, like, your favorite spot. More often than not, when somebody moves into a place that is experiencing paranormal activity that didn't have it before, it's usually residual energy. Residual energy is because somebody did the same thing over and over and over and over again every day, which left a huge energetic print in that area, be it good, bad, and different. It could have just been somebody walking down the hall the same way all the time. And they did it for long enough that it left their energy there. So then we will experience it as paranormal activity or as a haunting. But it doesn't mean there's an actual conscious spirit there. And when I say a conscious spirit, which is kind of like, I don't know, oxymoron, I guess, I mean some, you know, a spirit that can interact with us, knows that they've passed, knows that we're alive, trying to get their story told. That's usually not the case. More often than not, it's residual energy. You can just cleanse your environment. It's always really good when you get a house to go in and bless and cleanse the house. Put your own energy in there. Claim it to be your own. And you can literally simply just walk around the house with some sage. I like sage and lavender. Open up a window and say, thank you for releasing all past, present imprints and replacing it with my own positive energy. Claim it as your own. And so to actually tell Rebecca exactly who these spirits are, it would involve me talking to her one-on-one. I did pick up on 3 spirits that are around her, which I did tell her. But as far as it not bothering the husband, that doesn't surprise me Men are more logical. There are logical counterparts. Women, statistically speaking, are more connected to spirits because of our emotional center. Our emotional center is literally tied into everything. Our brains look like spaghetti. And guys' emotional center is like the size of a pea, and their brains are very, very compartmentalized, and they have to walk into that compartment. Since spirit works on the same wavelength as emotions, we are going to be more connected than men naturally. Also, men have society against them far more than women does when it says that they shouldn't feel things. They can't cry and they can't do this. Now, women are called crazy if we feel stuff, but, you know, whatever. People really get on guys if they feel things. So they're more detached from their emotional center, which in return makes them more detached from spirit. So if we're sitting there taking up on a whole bunch of stuff and our counterpart can't feel it, our male counterpart can't feel it, that's really not unusual. They're also there as protectors for us. That's what men, one of their roles are supposed to be, is to help, you know, support and protect the women. Supposedly that's what society says. So they're supposed to be more logical and grounded than us. So yeah, that's not, you know, necessarily uncommon. For it to be scaring the children, that's what, you know, really speaks to me. This is the thing. When we don't understand something that's going on in our environment, we get scared. And this is because we have a natural fear of the unknown. It's programmed into us since birth. It's not just our, you know, like flight or fright scenario, I think that's what it's called. It's literally programmed into us. So if we don't understand something, instead of naturally wanting to explore, we get scared. And that's just what society teaches us, is not to explore stuff, not to, you know, not, if you don't know it, just shy away from it. So, you know, it will scare us. And then also, you know, the way media talks up spirit, if you have some sort of paranormal activity, oh my God, it's a ghost and it's bad and it's a demon and it's evil and they're all out to get you and out to kill you, and which is just ridiculous. The majority of spirits are just friends and families that, you know, pass away, and they're trying to show their presence, still being with you. Let's see. How do I know what it is, and how do I get rid of it and make it stop? So for her, I went through and actually told her who some of the spirits are. It's better in these situations to identify them and ask them individually why they're there, because spirits can come to us for so many different reasons. Some spirits are just what I call environmental spirits. They're attached to the environment. They don't want to leave, or it's residual energy. Some spirits are kind of the typical spirits trying to get their stories told. If you are enhanced in some way, regardless if you realize it or not, we're like bug lamps to them, and we just attract spirits. So if they can see our light, then they're going to come towards us, regardless if you want them to or not, and regardless if you're admitting that you are sensitive to spirit or not. So if they want their story told, then they're going to come to the closest light, which happens to be, you know, you at the time. Also with your friends and family that's passed, if you are a beacon of light to them, you're a comfortable light to them, so they're going to, you know, be drawn to you. Some spirits just still want to be a part of life, so then they will, you know, try to hang out with us. Other spirits are here to guide us. Some of them are trying to right the wrongs of their own life, and will try to do that in the afterlife by helping us now. A real extreme example I give of this is, say a spirit was a child molester or a murderer, and they pass away, and all of a sudden they're around your kid, and you're like, oh my God, I don't want that spirit around them, but they're actually there in a protective way. Some spirits do that. Some spirits are like, oh, you know, I lived a really shitty life, excuse my language, I lived a really shitty life, and I did all this bad stuff, so now I want to go back and I want to protect kids so these things don't happen to them. So we do have the choice to change or try to right our wrongs of the physical when we cross over. So that's another reason why some spirits are around us. What it comes down to, though, to understand how to get rid of them or to make it stop, you have to know who's there and why they're around. So it's not a, so-called straightforward question. Another thing is, if somebody tells you that you have a spirit or entity attached to you, you need to be very clear of where their skill set lies and where the information is coming from. Also, if, what type of spirit are they? Are they a guide? Or are they, something that's trying to be, destroy your life or is malevolent or whatever? Unfortunately, there's a lot of gypsies out there, a lot of these pop-up psychic places that you will go to, and you might just pay for a really cheap reading. And then they'll be like, they'll say something like, oh, the negativity in your life is because of this spirit, and if you want me to get rid of them, you just have to pay this much money. And they keep kind of Jewing you in. I probably shouldn't say that's probably derogatory. Does it count if I'm a Jew? Oh, my God, I'm so sorry. They'll keep trying to, pull you in and get you to pay more money. And, if you have somebody like that saying that you are, cursed or you have a demon attached to you, especially if they follow anything up with any of these so-called rituals or a way that they can help you by saying, oh, and don't tell anybody, red flag, they're phony. So you have to know where the information is coming from. So a couple of people wanted some kind of tips or tricks to help them be more connected with their spiritual side, or how they can know if they're actually connected to their spiritual side, and how to listen to spirit a little better. So this is going to be the last question that I take offline, and then you guys can go ahead and ask your questions. So how do you know if you're connected to spirit? Well, that's a good question, because I grew up thinking that I was insane. I really thought I was crazy. And I was told I was crazy. I guess it's a fine line. Is it bothering somebody else, or is it just bothering you? It seems like you only get diagnosed with so-called schizophrenia if it's bothering other people. It's, it's not bothering anybody else. You're just talking to spirit in your head, or you just have imaginary friends, and it seems to be okay. These psychological disorders, and to say for sure, whoa, hello? I thought I lost her, right? Hello?
Hello?
Oh, okay. Well, that was weird. But to say somebody, is definitely talking to spirit, or they have a so-called psychological disorder, once again, I think that's pretty subjective, and I think it really depends on who you talk to. I would say if you have to ask if you're, connected to spirit, I'm assuming some things are going on. If you're sitting there questioning it because you have activity going on in your house, or if you're having things happen to you that you can't explain, chances are that the spiritual side of you, or the spiritual on you, they're most likely trying to talk to you in some, for some reason, either to guide you or to communicate with you. How to figure this out? This is a very tricky question. First of all, there's no, it's not a cut and dry answer. There's not a magic pill that you can take to all of a sudden clearly see through. Well, I don't know. There's tons of tribes that take hallucinogenics to get clear spiritual messages. Not suggesting that to anybody, but there's a lot of people out there that thinks that that works. But there's no manual. There's nothing that anybody can just pick up and say it is cut and dry, you do A, B, and C, and you're going to clearly be able to hear spirit and understand why they're in your life or understand your own spiritual side better. It's a very, very, very individualized journey. And once again, it goes off, your own database, which is made up of your own experiences and, everything that you've been exposed to in your life. So when it comes to spirit, when I say spirit in this one, I mean like a deceased loved one trying to communicate with you. They're going to have to use that database. Now, if it's kind of like your psychic side, picking up on people, and you're getting flooded with symbols, colors, things like that, once again, it's going to go off of your database. But it's almost from two different perspectives. When it's coming from spirit, like a deceased loved one, it comes from their perspective, and they're trying to use your database to get their information into you, which can be a little tricky sometimes, especially if it doesn't match up. If you have two completely different databases going on. When you're picking up on somebody else's energy or it's just your spiritual signs or things for yourself, those symbols you can usually make more sense of if you don't overthink it. If you look at everything 100% literal, chances are you're going to miss it. You have to start looking at symbols and signs that you get from off of people, either from spirit or from other people. You have to look at them straightforward and then also metaphorically. Because if it's coming from spirit, if your databases doesn't match up, they're going to try everything they can to get that message out. So one spirit that sends you a tree might mean this very literal tree. Another spirit that sends you a tree might just be a reference to the outdoor because they don't know how to give you a reference to the outdoor. But they see there's this tree in your database. So you have to be careful with that. Now, when it comes to picking up on other people's information and seeing these signs and symbols for yourself, you can actually develop your own code. There's a lot of mediums that will also develop a code with spirit as well. The problem with that is it becomes very generalized. It's usually not specific information when you do that because it has to stay generalized to do across genre with as many spirits as possible. So I don't use the whole code system with spirit, which makes every single session 100% different. So I never know what they're going to say. I never know how it's going to come out. I never know what the hell the things that they're showing me means or what they're telling me what it means. But it always speaks to the other person. And these sessions are meant for you guys, so it doesn't matter if I understand it or not. But when I'm reading a person, I'm meant to interpret that for that person. So I have developed over time this kind of universal code. Two, I get things thrown in there that I've never seen or experienced before all the time. But it's just kind of building onto that whole, that whole code for me. But I need to know what that stuff means so I can interpret it for whoever I'm doing a general reading for because they're asking things about their life. Now, the best thing that you can do if you are trying to develop a code, I would start with very small things. Don't make your symbols too overcomplicated. Also, you want to kind of go with the feeling of things. If you're constantly one of the first things that I used to get with people is I would get a white dove or a black dove. I used to get a lot of animal totem things, and then that's kind of morphed into, a lot more in-depth meanings for people. But my code kind of started off of the animal totems, and I would see a black dove or a white dove. The feeling of the black dove always gave me this sense of them just coming out of some sort, like there was a whole bunch of negativity that they're just getting past. And the white dove always represented new beginnings for me. They're moving into new beginnings. So the way that I developed that is because it was the feeling that I had when I saw it. So these symbols, I kind of put meanings to them by the feelings that I was having, which is really super important. Because what you feel off of what you see is really where the information lies. It lies within those feelings because it's on a cellular level. It works through your emotions, and it really comes in on a cellular level. So what will happen is when you feel these things, it will actually turn into visuals or audio to make it tangible because we're in the physical. So instead of fighting against the symbols that you're seeing and saying, oh, it's a dove, it has to be a dove, always go off of the feeling that you get. And this will help develop a code to understand, what you're getting off people. Now, when it comes to spirit, anybody can talk to spirit. Spirit is around every single person. We all have people around us. I don't care if you have somebody that was close to you or not that's passed. People have this misconception that you have to have some sort of hardcore physical relationship with somebody for them to stay with you when they pass. That's not true. Spirits are around us for all different reasons, and anybody can talk to spirit. The way that they talk to you is the tricky part, though. They talk to you in a telepathic way and in a cellular way. So you'll feel them and you'll hear them kind of in your head. It's really not what it's like on TV. There are some people that can see spirit with their physical eyes, but more often than not, they'll feel the presence and they'll get imprints within their mind. When we hear spirit, it's usually not with our outer ears, not like a physical person sitting next to us. Does it happen sometimes? Yes. Thank God it's not all the time. But overall, it comes within our head. So the majority of people that want to talk to spirit only care about talking to the ones that they know. This makes it very, very difficult sometimes for us to recognize when spirit is talking to us. This is the thing. Every time you think about one of your loved ones that have passed, every time you're talking about them, every time that you are just wondering if they're around, it actually pulls them to you. It makes it so where they're there. So as you're talking to them in your head, they'll actually respond. More often than not, we hear that response in our own voice, or we write it off as going, oh, that's, I think that's what they would say, or, oh, I remember them laughing that way, or, I just think that this is, what they would tell me to do. It's actually them responding. So how you can tell the difference between if this is actually your own voice or them just using the energy of your voice to communicate with you is your voice, your inner voice, is your ego. Your ego is the most damning thing that you will have your entire life. It's 100% physical, and you'll never get rid of it. It is the one thing that's always going to give you your little doubts. It's always going to make you second-guess yourself. This is like your biggest enemy when it comes to talking to spirit, is that logical side, that little inner voice, that little devil on your shoulder, that ego. The thing is, though, your ego, if you pay attention, it always comes in the same exact place in your head. So when you hear those little, derogatory statements and thoughts and you beating yourself up, it's always in the same place in your head. Take note to this, because when spirit uses your voice to communicate with you telepathically in your head, it will come through on a different side of your head than your ego, because your ego already claimed that space. Spirit can't get into the ego space because that space is already filled with energy. Does that make sense? Is anybody with me on this?
Yes,
that makes sense.
Well, there's an ego and an id, though, too. There is an id, which is also part of that. And that's where
but I have to make it
separate.
Right. I have to make this very kind of as basic cut and dry as I can, even though there's really not a cut and dry, of how you can kind of start listening to when spirit, this isn't your spiritual side talking to you, this is when spirit talks to you. So once you take note of where your ego comes in, then when you're sitting there talking to a loved one, in your head, you're talking to them out loud, you're writing them a letter, when they respond, even if it comes across in your own voice, it will come in a different part of your head. So that's how you know what your response is. Also, sometimes it will actually come through in their own, in their actual voice. But it's.
Yeah, I've heard it was a good idea to write letters to your loved ones that have deceased. Just write it out and wait for a response some way, somehow. Right.
So, are you talking more like automatic writing, or
no, just writing
it out?
Like you would be writing it to them, like you were going to send that to them.
Right. So have you done that before?
Yes.
Okay, so when you're doing that, when you're writing that letter, have you ever been conscious of any replies right then as you are writing those questions out, or just writing? Have you ever
Usually it's not an instantaneous response. Honestly, usually it's something that happens afterwards, within a short period of time, maybe within.
So can you explain that? Can you explain of how some of those signs can come across to people? Because that's actually where I was going next. So can you explain how they answer you?
The way it worked for me is I wrote it for my uncle. He had passed away, and he was a great guy. Was always really good towards everyone, and I just wrote this letter down. It was probably maybe half a page, maybe 3/4 of a page long. And I finished it up, and I set it aside and put it in my drawer. And then I went outside to go take a walk. And as I was taking a walk, I noticed that there were several crows that had just landed outside and just appeared. I mean, they came within that hour that I'd wrote that letter. And it was funny because crows were one of his favorite animals. He'd always feed them. He always loved having them out. I mean, most people think that they're annoying, but they landed in the yard and they stayed there from the time I was outside to the time I walked in.
So, and then that was your response, to know that he was around.
That he got it. He got the message.
Right. So how would you suggest, how would you tell people to be more conscious of those responses? Because a lot of people will write those off.
Yeah.
They won't make the connection.
Yeah, I think it's just to be more open-minded and aware of your surroundings after you do something like that. Sensations, things like that. Sometimes it will pop out of nowhere, and you might not even realize it till maybe the next day or the day after, and then you'll think to yourself, wait a minute, that happened for that reason.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that and be, aware of what happened after you wrote that letter, after you tried to make that connection.
Yeah.
Eyes and ears open, feelings open.
So the hard thing is, when people message me and say, how can I be, more aware of my connection with spirit, is we do receive signs in so many different ways. And this is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if you're looking for it too hard, then you miss it, because you become very narrow-minded looking for this one specific sign. And a lot of people who lose people will say, oh, if you're around, knock on the wall. And if they don't knock on the wall, then they think their loved ones aren't around, because they're only looking for that sign. But what if their loved one can't knock on the wall? What if they don't have the energy or the power to do that? But they can send them a crow. And they're missing the crows because they're only looking for the knock on the wall. So it works both ways. Once you talk to them, it's you kind of, you have to be conscious of, your surroundings, but you also can't think of it too hardcore so you don't miss something. Usually, when you get your animal totems, or they send you animals, they send messages to you through the animals, it's usually something that will catch your attention. Oh, that's really weird. Why is that deer just standing there staring at me? Why did it stop in the middle of the herd? It will make you question something. And so, but a lot of people will write that off. And I think that's something that just, for me, my own signs, I always write them off until after the fact, until after something happens. And then I'm like, oh, that's what that meant. I totally saw that shit yesterday. Why didn't I put two to two together? So
Absolutely.
Do you have any, let's see, do you have any other advice or experiences you want to share?
Well, I was going to ask you about something when you were talking about blocking, and blocking certain things. Now, do you believe that there are people or certain things that can spiritually dampen, like per se a psychic cooler, people that just have that natural aura, or things that have that natural aura?
I guess. I would say, I don't want to say that this is definitively like, I'm going to go off of more like vibrational fields. I think we all have this vibrational field about us, and if we don't match up with somebody else's vibrational field, or if it's an entity that has a much lower vibrational field, can it pull, if it's powerful enough, I do think that it can kind of pull us down to a point, but it's only if we allow it to. Because if we have a much stronger or higher vibrational field, then we should be able to overcome that. But I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of forces out there that could, that are stronger than us and that could put up blocks, It's just like the whole thing, like it doesn't matter how good of an artist that you're going to be, there's always going to be someone better. That's just the simple fact. And I think that's with energy too. I don't think there's anybody here that is like at the top of the energetic like spectrum. So I think there's definitely things out there that could, block us or pull us down. But I think that's why you also have to like constantly be working at it and conscious and, dodging that stuff, going off those feelings and saying, okay, you know what, I don't want this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Because I guess the reason I ask is because, I believe that some people can astral project, and probably some better than the others, and what do you think are the best methods for that? What would you suggest?
I don't know. If you figure it out, can you please teach me? Because I don't know how to astral project. I've done it a few times. I did it one time. Well, this was more like an out-of-body experience. It's when I died in the hospital. I came out of my body, and I literally was above my body, and no matter what I focused on, I was there instantly. It was really crazy. And then I kind of realized what was going on, and I looked back down at my body, and I was instantly in my body again looking up. Like I knew like I shouldn't be out of it. That actually got me interested in astral projecting, and I had started looking into it, and I was like, oh, this would be really cool if I could just travel anywhere. I had started to like leave my body on several occasions, meditating and trying to do astral projection that way, but it freaked me out. I felt my body like my energy like pulling like out of my body. I was like, oh shit, wait a minute, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to die? But I think I was basing it off of when I, came out of my body from actually flatlining in the hospital. So I think that's kind of where my fear goes. Well, no, but that's what got me started into looking into it. But then every time I had started to leave my body, I would just freak out thinking that I was going to die if I left my body because of that experience. So I think for me, I'd have to release that fear and be a little more open-minded and realize that, I'm not going to die if I astral project.
I also think that your body has that automatically. Like that's hardwired into you to that defense, like you have to protect yourself so you don't die. So I think that fear, that's like, I call it saucer separation, that fear is a natural response to that experience. And so you push, you kind of have to be aware that the fear is going to come up, and you kind of have to ride through it rather, or you crash down and get back in your body, get up and go have coffee.
Right. But it's not the same type of fear as like saying like seeing a spider, This is
right.
Like crap, like I'm gone. So And it's weird because I don't even have a fear of death. I think my fear comes from that, I guess playing around with something that I feel that I don't have full control over. So I think I would definitely have to get past that fear and learn to let go a little bit. But I'm a control freak, so I don't know if that's possible. If I could fully let go of my spiritual being, that's a lot. That's a huge step.
I did have a question. I don't know if you're ready to move in a new direction a little bit, but it's kind of in this vein about ways to effectively set up grids to help with protection, and the thing that you always hear is salt. And I've never.
So you're talking more about evil or negativity.
Yeah, just kind of like gridding your space against negative energy, whether it's here or from beyond. But you just want to kind of keep your space clean, and like you said, when you come into a place and you kind of claim it as your own, and you open the windows, and a lot of people talk about how you could put salt around the edge of a room or by your windows, and I was wondering if you think that even holds any water, or is it just enough to sort of intend that your space is clear to keep it clear?
Well, you have to understand, when it comes to anything spiritual, this is all working with an energy, and energy, it really has to come off of intent. Everything we do, touch, feel, think, it creates energy. So if we're thinking about something, it's going to put, think of that little thread going out of your head and a little dot just from one thought. And then you come in contact with other people that have the same thought or can add on to that thought, then all those threads start connecting and that ball kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which is that ball is that intent. So the more stronger that intent is, the bigger that web grows. So when it comes to, your spiritual blocks or your boundaries, you first have to go off of your own moral compass, your belief, what speaks to you. The thing is, when it comes to sage, when it comes to lavender, when it comes to salt, society as a whole has statistically said, hey, this works, so people agree with it. Somewhere along the lines, somebody was like, oh, I burned sage and it got rid of negativity, and then somebody else jumped in the bandwagon and said, hey, I did the same thing and it worked, and then somebody else did it, and now everybody just agrees that's what works. If you don't believe in it, it's not going to work. You'd just be dumping salt all over your room.
Does that collective agreement, though, sort of support that it works?
It does if you believe in that collective agreement. If you think all of that is hokey bullshit, then once again, you're just going to be dumping salt all over your room. You're going to be going,
well, may I interject on this one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because actually it's like you were saying with the sage and whatnot, you're right. You're correct on intent. But you use time-tested methods. And just to say this for your question about salt on that, as many a demonologist, many a people who have done, say good witchcraft, white magic, it's been empirical that they use that. They've used it for ages now. So to say it works or it doesn't is one thing, but it has been used from. It's been a time-tested method according to them. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the same with, sage and why lavender calms. Somewhere down the line, somebody had figured out, or really believed that this worked. To say why, I don't know. But there are definitely some methods out there for, when it comes to spiritual energy that, they say works. Salt is definitely one when it comes to demonic forces. That's something that's why it's pretty readily known, regardless if you've ever delved into any sort of demonology or witchcraft or anything like that. It's just kind of basic knowledge because it's been used forever, just like sage. But like I said, if you don't believe in it, how much do you expect that to work? That's like you putting up, if you aren't a believer in, Jesus Christ, and then all of a sudden you have something happen to you and you hang a cross thinking that cross is going to protect you. you better be getting in touch with yourself and really connecting with Jesus for him to help you out in that situation.
Agreed.
So, it really has to come with your basis or your intent, but there's a lot of other ways that you can protect yourself. So you want to look at whatever speaks to you. If you look at just spirituality and like the realm of spirituality, there's so many different facets that you can go down. You have so many different religious preferences, so many different, oh man, I don't even know where to begin. You have the Indians that really focus on nature and animals and hallucinogenics, and you have the herbal side of things. You have crystals. You have the chakras and the auras and the colors, and you have the energy grid around this world, or the crystal grid that people talk about, or meridian lines, or electromagnetic field. You have, the demonology aspect. You have just basic psychology when we look at, like, the power of positive thought and mantras. And really, to develop a really good grounding technique is you really want to start by whatever speaks to you and then go from there. My methods of meditation and grounding myself and, just different things that I've used have definitely changed. But I still go back to a couple key things that have spoke to me. Like, I work a lot with the angelic realm. Now, I'd never believed in angels. I'm going to be honest. I was never a religious person. But they started to appear to me, like, in full-body apparition forms where I cannot deny them. Kind of cussed them out a couple times, but made them prove themselves, which I don't suggest to anybody. But they proved themselves. So now if I feel very, like, overwhelmed or feel like things are out of my control, that's who I turn to, because it's just worked for me. Still, there's a lot of people that believe that, like, angels and fairies are very hokey. I remember when I first started talking about angels, I felt like an idiot. I was like, these people are going to think I am insane. I'm talking about fairies and angels. Like, these things aren't even real. And I was talking to fairies last night. I've talked to gnomes and trolls. I've talked to birds, like just regular birds outside. I mean, I don't even know. I have done thought. I've lost my mind a bazillion times. But it has to go off of literally what speaks to you. If you don't believe in something, it's not going to work. So if mine and yours moral compass isn't even close in proximity, you're just going to look at me like a tree-hugging hippie that done lost her mind. Does that make sense? So nothing I would say to you would speak to you. So you have to start with what speaks to you. So what in the spiritual realm, like, really speaks to you? What do you, what?
Well, those
what
things don't speak to me, but I have a human being in form who has a real thing for messing with me, and I have yet to figure out what'll work. And I think these other things work, and I'm just wondering, like, if I'm doing it wrong or if it's just kind of to, because obviously this is a broader conversation. I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, on forms of protection when, the sort of tried and true methods maybe aren't working as well as one would hope.
Well, do you want to, like, explain the situation?
I have a person I've known for.
Oh wait, hold on. Can I stop you just for one?
Sure,
second?
You bet. Yeah.
Since we have so many people on the line, this is definitely one of those situations that, like, I don't believe in right and wrong answers. So if you guys feel like there's something that you can add, please, like, speak up. So go ahead.
I just have known an individual for a very, very long time who's very intuitive, like, sort of, and I hate using words like powerful because I think it's sort of relative, but her awareness is very high, and she's not clear. You when somebody's really spiritual, you would hope they'd be grounded and centered, and sort of forgiving and all that kind of stuff, but she has a tendency to be more petty and jealous. And so whenever there's something happening in my life, if she becomes aware of it, energy is projected at me, heavy, heavy energy that I have been unable to clear and block. And I'm very frustrated by it because I've tried all of the things that I know to do.
Okay.
Can I interject? Have you tried crystals?
Oh yeah. I've got a grid. I've got a pretty good setup, I think. But her.
So how many people do you know outside of her that has that is enhanced? Okay, I'm going to tell you something kind of. I don't necessarily, I wouldn't suggest this to everybody or anything like that, but do you know, like, multiple people that, are enhanced or, have abilities or just, is stronger, spiritual? Have you ever thought, I hate to say this, but, I have been in contact with somebody that was of much stronger negative energy than I had ever really thought was possible. And when I came in contact with them, which I didn't know that this was possible, I didn't believe in this at all, but some people call them like spiritual vampires. When he shook,
vampires.
When he shook my hand, I literally felt, it scared the shit out of me. I literally felt the energy like draining out. I was like, oh my God, like let go of me. And I refuse to go back there ever again. So, I think the only way that you can fight something psychically is psychically. Get your friends together. Connect hands, because when you make a circle and you connect that energy grid, it completes that circuit. And really, focus on the same thing and put that wall up. Put a mirror up. Let it reflect right back on her.
But advice.
If you are not strong enough to do it yourself, humble yourself and ask for that help. Because what will happen is that collective energy is going to enhance you, and it's going to shut that down, but it's also going to put you at your next level too, just by accepting that.
Do they have to be in proximity? Most of the people that I know are far away from me. So, I know a few people.
It helps.
I would think it would help more if they were, if you guys could physically, hold hands just to complete that circuit. But, it wouldn't hurt if you just have a couple of people local or just one other person and then get everybody else really on the same page at the same time and really put that intent out there. Look at the power of prayer. Right. Look at the one collective, consciousness. I literally was ready to go into surgery to get my feet amputated when I was 5. This is a true story. They were literally just going to get the other stretcher. You know how when you go into surgery, they put you on a new stretcher to roll you in there? So they went to get the surgery stretcher, and while they were doing that, my father had the minister of our church do a worldwide prayer, and he anointed me. Literally, by the time that the doctors got back in the room, all my blood started flowing normal. Blood returned to my feet, and I didn't have to get them amputated. They didn't know what happened. It was as if nothing ever happened to me. So the power of prayer works because of that one consciousness and the power of positivity. So if your intent is strong enough, could you work with other people, that aren't physically with you? Yes, but it's going to be amplified if you can actually connect that energy, especially if you use those crystals to really project it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's awesome advice. Thank you.
But I'm not going to put it out there that everybody should try psychic warfare.
Right. No. This is a really weird situation, and I've tried to handle it in the best way that I can, and I've been unable to shake this person. And I just want to, if it means I've got to do something a little more.
Well, that's what you're going to have to do, because this is the thing. When you're putting up blocks, when you're putting up boundaries, it's just for yourself. But she's invading your entire energy grid.
Right.
which isn't just your physical self.
No, and it's not kosher.
Right.
That's not okay.
So I think, that's when it does call for a little more extreme action.
Okay.
I wish you the best of luck on that.
Thank you. No, I'll
if you decide to do that, like with a little bit of information, I could definitely project it out there. I have a pretty good connection with the spiritual realm.
I'll
I have a lot of
PM
spirits
after
up there.
we're all done. I've been wanting to PM you anyway, so we'll talk.
Maybe I'll get in touch with one of her departed loved ones and see what they have to say. Send them after them.
God, that'll be a treat.
So I'm going to go back to the beginning. Dawn from Wisconsin, you were the first person to call in. Do you have any questions?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you have any questions?
Actually, I do. Going back to earlier when you were talking about the man that was coming through to you with the grandmother, with the orange, I had asked my father and my grandmother, who had both passed, if they were able to come through while I was talking with you. So I have a feeling. Yeah, that was my dad, and my dad is very strong. In fact, you had done a reading for me last year, and he came to you as a haze and I think an orb, and was playing around with you when I was when we were doing the reading. So he's very, very
crazy.
strong.
Crazy.
So if he's still there, tell him hello.
Can I ask you something? Like, do you know what the orange is about?
My dad loved eating oranges.
Okay.
And he would peel them all the time for my kids, too.
Okay.
Kind of weird, but,
do you realize what an idiot I felt like saying that?
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't do, I had talked to him earlier today saying, if you can come through during this call tonight, I'm going to be on it. And I got the confirmation. So.
Right. See,
the signs like you were talking about, Sirena.
Exactly.
Right. And see, you are the smart one, because even though I don't put it out there like, hey, I'm not here to talk like to your departed loved ones, like really that's all it takes. It's going, hey, can you please join this call?
I don't know. It was one of those, it felt right for me to ask, so.
That's great.
I'm sorry for interjecting in that the whole thing. But
No, that's okay. So was I talking to you when he came through, or was I talking to somebody else?
No, you were not talking with me.
Who was I talking to that he just kind of bombarded?
You were talking to me, and I was going to just ask actually with her saying that, because my grandpa, so I didn't know if like the grandmother and the man that came through, if they looked around the same age or not, because my grandpa, he would eat oranges like an apple, and that was always so funny to us grandkids that he would, eat the rind and everything.
Okay, so this is actually something that happens a lot in events. So what will happen when I do an event, if we're focusing on, say you call me for a private session and you're focusing on one spirit, which I always ask everybody to do, but say you're focusing on a male and they happen to eat oranges, but there's somebody else in your family that's passed that's also a male and also had that same trait. Even though you're only focusing on the one, it's the same energy and it's going to pull the other one in. So what happens to me at events, this will happen. I'll get bombarded with these energies that are the same. They'll have the same personality, or they died in similar ways, et cetera, et cetera. So then as I talk to them, they'll start giving me more and more and more specific information to where it will only fit one person in the room. Now, did I say anything else? Because now I don't remember. Did I say anything else about the guy?
Yes, you said he had pressure. You had pressure in your chest.
Okay.
And he actually had a form of COPD.
Okay. And Dawn, how did your dad pass?
He passed actually from a stroke. Well,
Okay.
we believe. We don't know for sure, but.
Okay. I don't know the symptoms of a stroke, so what happens in a stroke?
Well, this actually, he had 2 previous, and they both affected his vision, his balance, and his speech.
Okay. So I don't know because I'm sitting down, so I couldn't tell you like how I felt with them. Now I will say the lady with the guy, I will say her energy is very, very talkative. Like I felt like higher energy with her. Like I just wanted to like speed up my talking. So who is that fitting of? I'm trying to like single this out.
That would be my grandmother.
Okay, now who am I talking to?
Dawn.
Oh, okay. So in this situation, I would have to say, and this isn't fitting of the other grandmother.
No, it is. My grandparents were farmers, and my grandma was always singing and yodeling and very.
Okay, so it's still both fitting. Give me a second.
But that's why I was curious, like if you could tell, if you remember, if like they seemed like they were similar age or not.
You know what? I did not see them. Like I felt them, and when I saw the guy, he came across, and just kind of like sometimes I just see him shadowy, and that's just because when they first sort of appeared to me, I would see them in their death state, and it freaked me out. So I told them like, hey, you can't do that. So now I see them more like in outlines and shadows. So, and then I could see the motion of him. It was an orange. My chest right now, once again, is really tight, and my back is hurting. I'm hearing something about horses.
My grandpa, he was a farmer. Yeah, he had his horses.
Okay, but did he have horses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I actually have a photo that we had.
I just heard
he had
two little ones.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then
he passed away in a car accident. He was hit by a young kid.
Okay, so I'm assuming these 2 couples or these 2 guys and 2 women, they probably came in together. For the fact that they showed me this orange, like that is something that is not typical of too many people, like at all. So I'm assuming they both came in together. So give me a second, and Dawn, let me focus on you for a second, okay?
Okay.
For some reason, as soon as I started focusing on you, I'm seeing like, I don't know, I feel like it's like a field of flowers. I don't know if they're tulips or what, but it seems like a lot of flowers. Hold on. Am I still with the farmers?
Yeah, my name's Michelle. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Michelle. So the flowers go to the farmers too. Did you guys have a field of flowers?
I mean, we would take out. There were flowers on the farm, and.
Okay, so ask them. Do me a favor. Do me a favor and just ask them, kind of in your head, to step back a little bit.
Okay.
All right, so let me see if I'm with you now, Dawn.
Okay.
I literally hear something about being non-invasive. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Non-invasive. And I'm seeing somebody in a chair, and they're smoking something. I don't know if this is a pipe, a cigarette, a cigar. They seem very kind of laid back and just chilling in this chair.
My dad was a smoker for 30 years.
Okay. So I'm assuming that's him. He doesn't seem that I keep feeling like I want to tell you he's relaxed. Like, I feel like I need to emphasize that to you. Like, he's relaxed, and he's okay now.
Yep.
Also, like, I keep getting my eye twitching. Did his eye actually twitch?
No, he had Bell's palsy.
What is that?
That's where one side of your face will droop.
Okay.
And
so
it was particularly one of his eyes were drooping.
Okay, so would he blink his other eye then?
Yes.
What's going on? Okay.
He had to wear a patch over one of his eyes.
Okay.
And
because I have just one of my eyes like twitching or blinking a lot. This sounds like him. I'm also seeing like a small rocking chair. Not rocking chair, I'm sorry. Rocking horse. It looks very old and quite small. Like, I would say this is definitely, a smaller one for like a toddler or a kid. It's definitely wood. It's definitely old. And there's nobody on it, but it's like rocking back and forth for some reason. Do you know what he's talking about?
There was a horse that I had when I was growing up, but it was the type of that was on the springs.
The springs. Yeah, like in the playground.
Yeah, but it was actually it was a horse that had 4 springs, and it was on kind of like the base was metal, and then it had the springs attached to the corners.
Is this something that he got for you, or he made for you, or knew the person who made it for you?
He had gotten it for me.
Okay. The woman that he's showing me is like literally holding a pie.
Oh my God, my grandmother, she was a baker. She baked for a living.
I have to laugh. Listen, I have to laugh because this pie is so emphasized and so colorful that that it just looks scrumptious. Like you really want to eat this pie.
And my dad loved her pies too.
It's gonna make me want pie. I don't even know the last time I had pie. And then the last thing that they're showing, I think it's weird when spirits show me stuff because I never know if it's like literal or metaphorical or subjective or what. But I'm seeing a walnut.
Oh. Yep. There's stories about that.
Okay. I'm trying like super hard not to focus on like any spirits too much because the more I talk to them, the more I entertain them, the more that they overtake me. So I'm just kind of letting them give me little tidbits of information so that they're around and that they're.
He actually talks to my daughter. And
Aww.
She hears him in her head, like you were talking about how your ego takes over one side and your brain takes over, or the spirit, you can hear him on the other side. We have that a lot around the house, and we know he's here just by things move or...
Yeah, the curtains, what's going on with the curtains?
That's a shower curtain. That was my father, and that happened last week. My daughter was in the bathroom, and the shower curtain was moving.
That was like 100% spirit.
Oh, my God. She's going to freak out when she hears that.
It wasn't meant to, like, freak out, I promise.
No. I mean, just, like, freak out, like, awesome, like, like that really was him because she feels that she's somewhat sensitive, and so some of the things that everybody is talking about tonight about...
He leaves little things around, too, like specifically for her to find.
Yeah.
They're like just for her. Like you realize this, right? Like just for her.
Yes. And he also comes to me with feathers. I I was at a store tonight, and the shirt that I was debating on picking up and purchasing had a feather in it. So I assumed that meant for me to purchase that one.
So what store are you shopping at? Feathers in the clothes.
Well, that's just, I mean, it was in the middle of the ladies' department. There was no feathers anywhere. So we know he's here. Yeah. So I can't wait to tell her about the shower curtain.
Yeah, that was like definitely him without a doubt.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So who else do we have? We talked to Michelle. Jamie, do you have questions? I know you wrote me a question. Are you still on the line? Jeannie, did I lose you? Did she hang up?
Jolene's still on the line.
Okay.
I'm here.
Well, you're next, John, and then Jolene. Okay, well, Jamie, I'm still going to answer her question real quick because I really don't know how to answer it, and unfortunately, that's all I can say. Maybe somebody else on here has some advice. I don't even know how to pronounce this. That's why I wish she was still on the line. But she said, since I have linked W/SICANNI, I feel all hell's demons stabbing me no matter my tries to avoid, rise above, and pray. I so need to know what is going on. Thank you. With psychically, I don't know what that is. Does anybody know what this is? SICANNI. Psychically. SICANNI. Psychically.
Sure.
Anybody?
SICANNI. I've never heard of that.
Neither have I. So, with this...
Wait a minute. Isn't that something to do with Native American tribal...
Peruvian music and...
You know what? Now, when I first read this, I thought it had something to do with Native American, like for real, I swear. But I don't know anything about, like, I know a little bit about Native American stuff, so I wasn't really sure why I felt that. So I don't know 100% for sure. I don't know.
It's according to, I just Googled it, it says it's like native flute music, which is used frequently in sort of transportive meditation. So when you're doing like vision quests and things like that, drumming and flute are part and parcel of those kinds of really intense. So it sounds like she's on an intense spiritual journey.
Okay, so I would say one or two things would be happening here, and anybody can interject if you feel I'm completely off base. But this would be my best guess. I know along my spiritual journey, the more in depth that I got, I did experience what I consider like spiritual warfare. I started to have a lot of dreams about negative things, forces, and then I would have the angelic presence kind of show me how to deflect against this. And I do think it was a lot of preparation of how to deal with these negative forces, because the stronger your energy is, then there are forces out there that are going to try to get at it and try to use it for their own good. This is why we have, the good versus evil and all the other stuff. I feel like, one, that could be going on. Or two, I feel that this could actually be part of her journey to release, emotional and subconscious negative baggage. But it might be things that she has to fight through herself to be able to reach that next level. Anybody agree or disagree?
This is Kat. I agree with that.
It really, most of the time when there's poltergeist activity in a house, they think that it's a spirit or there's a ghost or there's, like you were saying, some kind of negative energy. But most of the time, it's some kind of emotional attachment to it. Most
right,
of the time,
a manifestation. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
of your
like of a younger. Well, most of the time too, it's like a younger angst. Most people subjected to that are the ones that are young adolescent girls, and you'll have poltergeist activity due to that emotional connection to that energy, those vibrations that are out there. So that has a lot to do with that, I think.
So then, what type of advice could we give her to try to work through this?
Well, one of the things, just because she's feeling physically attacked, right? That is an indication that there's like a kundalini stirring, which is a natural. That energy excites your entire being, but it also burns out all of your fear. So all of her fear and anxiety is going to come up about, like, if she has a fear of demons or possession or all of these things. So this is her ego. This is her ego that is coming into play.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely. So anybody have, like, any advice of helping her control this, or just accepting that fact?
Well, there's a couple different things that you can do that I've seen that actually have worked for many people. One, like you were saying earlier about how you bless a house, how you smudge a house, and how you free that out. Well, you can also smudge yourself or others. You can do the same. That cleansing to a person or to yourself to be able to do so, to help cleanse that negative energy. And breathing techniques, like you had said earlier, good meditative breathing techniques often help dispel that kind of energy, and it helps to quell it at very least.
Yeah, I agree with that. It sounds like, though, I mean, I think regardless if she wants to go through this or not, I think she's going to go through the natural process of purging. And I think the easier that, or the more that she accepts this process, the easier it's going to be. If she keeps shying away from it and running from it, I think that purging process is going to be a lot more physically, what's the word? Intense, yeah, like, I think if you're on your spiritual journey, there's just certain things that you are going to have to get rid of if you continue down that path. So
some of the just basic, just the really dialing it down to the things that'll make it the easiest on you include getting a clean diet, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water. These are all really critical. Surrender. Getting into that meditative prayer where you can't engage in the phenomena. You have to let it go. You have to ride it like a wave, and that's practice. I mean, that's just the act of practice. So she's doing this, and she hasn't done any of the groundwork. It's like she's shaking up a soda bottle and setting it on the counter and waiting to see what happens. You've got to do that groundwork. You have to. There's a reason that people study with other people to get this kind of stuff going. You don't want to just dive into it head first.
I want
a very good point of advice.
I want to give her a little tangible trick that I feel like I came across way too late, and for any of you guys that have ever worked with me, I reiterated this a lot. I'm really big on mantras, and the reason why I like mantras is because I can do it before I go to bed or when I first wake up in the morning. I can kind of do it in my head and throughout the day, and regardless of what I'm feeling stressed about, I can counteract that right away just by putting a smile on my face, which naturally raises your vibrations, and, power of positive thought, counteract it right away. Well, that's only like one side of it. I realized that we have a lot of fears, and these fears will put up blocks. So I started to do these mantras to release fear of moving forward and release some of these blocks. And for her, I think this might be really good to start a mantra of saying, you know, put a smile on your face and say, thank you for releasing all fears associated with, you know, my spiritual journey and being scared to face my emotional demons and to let them go, whatever might be standing in her way. But what I felt like that I came way too late into is I had been doing these mantras for like 2 years, and I realized that I was actually subconsciously just putting up another block because I never put out in the universe that I was receptive to receiving change. So here I was releasing, or thought I was releasing this stuff and saying, you know, thank you for releasing all blocks, you know, that has to do with fear, but I wasn't putting out in the universe that I was willing to move forward and accept that positive change and what that meant. So now I count, like, I immediately, whatever I release, I immediately do a follow-up mantra of saying, thank you for being receptive and accepting of this positive change to come from releasing this block. And that's helped my transitions and moving forward, like, a lot easier. Like, I haven't been scared of change at all because of that. So I think that might, you know, help her out a little bit.
Release and affirm.
I have something to add.
Go for it.
Thank you. First of all, Kat, how you laid that out there, because I am completely agreeing with you. And another side to all of this is to shut down the labels and to really look at the fact that she's walking in this physical world. So part of that purging process, she has to identify these trigger points that are kind of giving her this sense. Because, Katz had said, like shaking up a bottle and getting away from the phenomena, because we spend a lot of time listening to people put labels out there, demonology, you know, crystals and so forth. And the bottom line is, what is the immediate crisis? What is she dealing with? So I do look at things on a biopsychosocial level. So identifying some of those trigger points, I think she has a direct alignment to be more centered in her true self, which is her spiritual journey.
Good point. Psychosocial, biopsycho.
So what's your?
She's contemplating some things that are triggering. I got to do this in Spanish. Can I speak Spanish right now? having trigger points that are affecting her. She's going directly to a phenomenon to try to explain what's going on. Things are moving, this and that. Well, what's going on? Kat, you brought up a very good point in terms of nutrition. When we start dealing with that whole digestive system and we're screwing around with it and we're not getting those nutrients, then we're affecting serotonin. Okay, we're a complete energy field within our system. So there are biological functions that do exacerbate anxiety and aggression and so forth. So that's one perspective. So what's going on there? What is her social encounters? Is she having problems with people? Are there interpersonal problems? So on and so forth.
Very true.
Yeah.
So for
I think
flute ride, you have to identify how you're walking around in this physical world. Period.
So dialing it down to just the basic.
Right.
It's basically what she's doing is she's decided it's a demon rather than she's labeling it. And once she labels it, there's a whole set of images and thoughts and emotions around that word demon. I mean, that's a really triggering word.
Oh yeah.
So she needs to set that aside because that's the least likely cause of what's happening to her.
For sure. Well,
no, you're absolutely
right. It's egocentric. And I'll dial it down to a basic root. It's like the power of suggestion. You can manifest things in your brain to create a reality that may not be the complete representation of the bigger reality.
So what I think she should do, I really like the phrase dialing it down to the basics. I think for her, when she's going into these, meditations, she's just kind of leaving herself open to experience, whatever. And since she's not dealing with all these different underlying issues, it's turning into very fear-based, tangible, thoughts and images and feelings instead of looking at what they're actually attached to. So I think maybe if she wants to continue doing these meditations, she should just start by focusing on one thing when she goes into the meditation instead of just leaving herself open to anything that's, coming her way. Because there's obviously some things that she's not purging, she's not looking into. And really to get full information of what that is, I think we would have to be talking to her. But she needs to start somewhere. So she can either, identify one of these things, accept it, because she knows what they are. We all know what they are. It's just, accepting that. And, start working on releasing that, or at least go into this meditation with just one positive thought and wanting one positive outcome to only overcome one thing or achieve one level instead of leaving the spectrum completely open. What do you think?
Yeah, and I'd have to interject on this one. There are a lot of paranormal investigators that do the same thing. Like you were saying about, the food intake and the social intake of that, all right? Paranormal investigators go in, the good ones at least, go into doing those situations with the mindset that doesn't exist in the first place. It's a process of elimination. Yep. There was one instance where this whole family were experiencing things and things were going wrong, and they ended up they found out that they were on a fracking gas leak that was going up to their house. So it was actually causing these manifestations. So it very well could be, a physical manifestation more, or a mental manifestation more than anything else. Just a process of elimination.
Well, and here's the thing, and I do work on the science level, so it's called ruling out. Before, as a therapist, before I would even lay a label, which I do not like labels, to personality disorders, you have to rule out what's going on, and what better place to start than the physical world? Because, the belief there, we're made up of energy and chemicals and biological function. So you really have to kind of start at the basic level and then work your way out. It's no different if you tell me if I go into the darkness that there are a bunch of goblins out there. At which point does that set in my head that there are goblins out there, and therefore I become fearful of the dark? Just using that as a basic example. So
you're absolutely right.
Just not
and then if you take it from the straight spiritual standpoint, rather, instead of where you do the ruling out, but from the spiritual standpoint, the purpose of this process, the purpose of these meditations that really get, the TM or transcendental meditation kind of meditations, is to purge you literally of fallacies so that you can get at the truth. And part of that process is being confronted with, the word trigger is absolutely accurate. You get a preconceived notion triggers a series of events. And if you are not in that state of surrender, you are going to just have a horrible time, because all of the things that, the boogeyman will show up. Everything that was in your closet when you were 4 will show up in these meditations. So she needs a little guidance, it sounds like.
Sure. You do have to start somewhere, but, and I'm not saying anybody on the phone, but you send somebody to Meditationville and they don't have an understanding of what's going on in the physical world and their challenges or their issues and so forth. I don't think anybody's going to get any justice out of a meditation, because you can meditate all day, and until you can really identify what's going on and what is functioning within your system that's causing you problems, then it's just going to be like a report.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You have to have that equal balance of, physical and spiritual. I mean, I really think that's, the whole point of your spiritual journey is to, get that equal balance, realizing that we walk in the physical still, but, we're spiritual beings, and trying to get both of that in line and, have a nice little, medium going for both of those.
It becomes intoxicating.
Who's the man talking right now, by the way? What was your name?
Name's John. It becomes very intoxicating when you start throwing around crystals and smudging and paranormal activity and afterlife and so forth. It does become intoxicating. So separate that from what you're doing in your reality in this physical life, you need to identify some things. You know, Sirena, we've had these talks. You have to identify
and
you before
when
you.
it comes down, it's not an easy fix, you know. Especially Americans, we want that, you know, easy fix. Take a pill and we're better.
Instant gratification.
We want that instant gratification, right? You know, I mean, like our entire society is built around that instant gratification. That's why you pay more for a 20 ounce than you do a 2 liter. Why? Because it's more convenient. We can drink it right now.
That's an example of self-efficacy. If you don't have a belief in yourself and you're consistently running to people to look for a yes or no answer, then you're connecting to your true self.
But that's very much in your spiritual journey. You know, I don't ever want people to like overcomplicate it, but they have to realize they still have to put the work in, and you can't just look at just your spiritual side or just your physical side. You have to look at both of them, and you have to put the work in.
You have to put the work in.
Part. Yeah.
Well, and part of that is getting clear on what your intention is with the
exactly
going into this. Why are you going down this rabbit hole? It isn't. You don't need to have a perfectly wonderful and delightful life. You don't need to chase this path. And so, what are you hoping to get out of it? What do you see at the end? What's your end game? You know, are you looking to be more intuitive? Are you looking to be more one with the universe? Are you looking for inner peace? Are you looking to become a healer? Like, what's your goal in it? And if you just start mucking around in it and see what happens just because it seems like a cool thing to do, you just are not going to get the kind of result that you're hoping for, and you will scare the crap out of yourself.
Well, let me ask you all this. What is the major theme of life? What's the major theme?
Oh, can I interject on that one?
Yeah.
Because I've pondered on this for quite some time, and the main question that I always came back to when somebody had asked me that very question is this: is if you were God, what's the one thing that you cannot snap your fingers and create? Perspective. You cannot make perspective. You can't not be a God because your perspective is as a God. So, as people being on this earth, I mean, you can say, hey, I've worked on TVs. Hey, I've worked on, making a pencil, right? But have you stood upside down and looked at a pencil? Have you jumped out of a tree and landed? All these perspectives are what a God cannot snap his fingers and create. And this is exactly why the message of life is just that, in my opinion, is it's all about perspective. You're creating experiences and knowledges through these perspectives.
See, and my theme is love, staying out of the contrast, and taking the path of least resistance. You stay in that theme of love, you have self-efficacy. You stay in that theme of love, the labels disappear.
How do you define love? What's your definition of love?
Love is not, duality of right and wrong. Staying out of the contrast of arguments. Having opinions that aren't based by fact just to have something to say. Arguing with someone. Staying away from all of that. Loving yourself, treating yourself accordingly. Not questioning yourself.
My guides always, whenever I get confused about something, they always drive me back to love. Always. And for the longest time, I, in my mind, and this is, perspective or experience, my understanding of what love was that it was an emotion. And as I got more perspective and sort of pursued, what is this really? The answer came back to me that love is creation itself. It's the compulsion of the universe to create life, and the basis of that life is love. So that creative force, that manifestation of things into existence from nothing is the force of the universe, and that in and of itself is love. And by that definition, every process in your body and your very existence is made of love. And so, John, you were saying you've got to love yourself. You are love. And it's just what we've lost is the awareness of what that is. And when you like, should you go down this path and you get to those higher levels of consciousness, you actually get to experience this sort of love in transcendence as it exists in the column from the things that we can't touch, see, and hear to the things that we are right now, and it permeates everything. But because we're so driven by our other senses, we've lost awareness of it. And
Absolutely.
It's unfortunate. And so a lot of our energy, like this gal who's doing these meditations and being stabbed by demons or whatever, that is our pursuit is to get back to that place. We know it exists. We know it's out there. It's tangible, but we don't know how to access it. And what we don't understand is that we are it.
Sure. Because, toggling off of that, I truly believe we are meant to inspire and create, and that is the essence. I fight
right.
with it with my ego and my mental side. I get caught in the duality because of my mental side is so strong. I'm like, you're wrong. I'm right. There's no need. If it's not functioning, and take it any way you want to. When you're really looking, for me, when you're looking in your environment and you're walking in that circle and predicated by what you just said, Katz, and some other things that were brought forth, if you can stay away from that contrast, I think you have a better idea of where you're going, and then all the other things can fall into place. I know, like in a program part of our program in one course was mindfulness. And it took me a long time to really realize what mindfulness is in terms of releasing, letting go. Cats, we've talked about surrender, and General Joe Public doesn't understand what surrender means. General Joe Public doesn't really understand what is the true nature of meditation. And so we start listening to all these buy-ins, which I do think becomes a little dangerous, but you do have to be a good field data collector to see what resonates with you, that like Sirena has talked about, getting back to that positive state of being and, kind of moving forward. And it is very much a process because we're at a critical point, I think, in this world where we're starting to identify people awakening, quote unquote, and a lot more people coming to mental health services just because they don't have enough things in their repertoire, tools for skills to walk in this physical world. That's just my...
John, you're right. You're right. That it's about knowledge. They don't have the knowledge behind that, and that's where knowledge creates perspective, because once you understand something more, then you can be able to predicate whether or not you like it, whether or not it's good for you, whether or not that's a healthy thing. Without the knowledge,
we don't even have a language we don't have a language around the seeking process. We don't have any kind because in America in particular, or Western civilization, we have this insular kind of religious point of view. It's very narrow focused, and it doesn't accommodate the breadth of our interaction with spirit. And so because of that, everything that isn't defined in the books that we're handed when we're very young falls into the realm of terrifying things that we don't understand. And we have no language assigned to these processes for people in the Western world. And unless they go out, they seek it, it becomes very overwhelming and very terrifying. And, people believe that they're haunted or possessed or abandoned by God. And like all of these things start to happen because we don't have a belief system that absorbs anything outside of the dogma. And it's unfortunate because we're missing out on, there's this massive shift happening. All of these people are going through it, and there's no there. And I guess the other way to look at it is because it's undefined, it can be defined by the generation that's going through it. And so,
that's why we have people like Sirena, not to blow smoke up your ass. Pardon my language.
So when I was younger, I had, and it just kind of reminded me of this when you were talking about, Cass, what love is. I did a poem. I had actually pondered that when I was like younger, and I did like a series of art based on this. And basically, what I came up with to break it down for people is art is beauty, beauty is appreciation, appreciation is love, because it is kind of subjective, but it's developed out of that appreciation. And we get appreciation because we find something beautiful. And the things that we find beautiful are usually the things that are created from other people or ourselves. So I really do think that one of the main points of this world is to be creators. I've heard that. That's just not like my own belief. I've heard that a lot from Spirit as well, that is our basis, our purpose here is to create, and that is where, you know, our love comes and our appreciation and our beauty, to see other people create and come together and how that brings people together. I don't think it's something that we could actually define, like you were saying, like with words. It's something really beyond our scope of understanding, but to put it in, you know, basic physical terms, I think that kind of sums up the different areas.
Yeah, we need destroyers though too. They
have
to exist.
But that's where appreciation comes from. That's you know, you want to appreciate hot without feeling cold, and there's a lot of beauty that lies in that.
Okay, with that last question, we're going to go ahead and end this call. I would like to thank everybody who joined tonight. I'm going to try to keep these talks down to around 2 hours, not to lose anybody. And remember, the point of these talks are not to say this is a right or wrong answer. It's strictly to help inspire independent thought and to help you guys along your spiritual journey, give you a basis for research and guidance. If you guys have any questions that you would like us to answer, if you'd like to call in, you can follow me on Facebook to find out when our next talk is, or you can leave your question below. I will provide the links for Facebook, also my scheduling app if you would like to schedule an appointment with me personally. Thank you and have a wonderful night. Bye.